All right, so this just seems like the perfect use case here for GPT-OSS running local. I've got these tests here. Tests are failing because I've converted them to pytest, but I haven't converted the assertions over. So why don't I just select this code here? You can see about 6 or so assertions there in this test class. Let's just see what we can do here to ask GPT-OSS. It's the 20 billion parameter model version. All right, so we're going to ask convert these unit tests to pytest. Only modify the assertions and leave everything else as is, including comments here. So let's just see what happens. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? 260 tokens per second makes that so darn viable for using it for such a simple task like this. You can see here with the diff as well. This looks correct. So assert equals replaced with assert. The parentheses are taken care of here. Comma goes to the double equal. And so, yeah, just accept those changes. And just to double check here, this is where I really like to have the get diff. We'll go ahead and add these changes, and you can just step through the diff here. And what I like to do is just make sure that the parts that shouldn't be changed here, like lines, as well as the values here, make sure those aren't changed. And it looks like, make sure those aren't changed here. And it looks like this looks good to go. Yeah, go ahead and add that in. All right. And so come down here. Oh, I got a ton more down here. So let's try this one now. Oops. How many we got? This is a giant test class here. Let's go ahead and just see what happens with this one. Exact same thing here. Wonder if it'll blow through its stinking budget here. All right, so rewriting it. Look at that. I've never done a scrolling diff like this before that spans across more than basically a screen. So we'll just see. Looks good though. Tab to complete. Accept that. Again, this is why I really like that get diff though. And again, I'm just going to step through this here and just look line by line. In general though, just upon first glance here, this looks good. Yeah. By the way, I'm using Delta for the get diff. I'll have a separate video about that soon. Love it though, because you can see here when I'm incrementally adding the changes here. And actually I could split this up here and ask for one at a time or just one chunk at a time. And yeah, this is a much easier way to approve this here. And clear this out. Yeah, this is a nice way to see that the values haven't changed, just the surrounding part for the assertion. Yeah, looks good. Commit that. All right. Let's see, what else do we have here? Got another one? All right, let's start this. Looks like, I think this is the last one here. I'm going to give it a ton of code to churn through. Are there any assertions in there? Looks like there are no assertions down there that I care about. Looks like this is it right here. All right, what do we got? Did that work? Oh, look at that. The tests are passing now. Right down there, 19 tests passed. So it must have worked here. Let's go ahead and check it in. Split this up here. Yep. Yeah, love this step-by-step approach here. By the way, if you've never seen that before, it's just a get add with a patch here. And if you've got a good pager or a good diff utility like Delta here, even diff so fancy works good with this here. When you run this, you get this nice little incremental step-by-step. You can see I've got one hunk at a time or chunk here. And you can split up a bigger one like this. You can see there's some breaks between the sections. So that's why I use the S option here for split. And now you can see it gives me just the first one. Then you can clear the screen, actually, Command K. And you can do S again to get back that last one. And then Y there for yes. Okay, that's another big one. So I know I'm going to split this up here. So S, go through each piece here. Just double check here real quick. Looks like it got rid of a closing parenthesis there. Not certain what happened with that, so that makes me a little bit concerned here. So if you're in the middle of one of these, you can maybe, and I'm wondering if it's actually just part of the assertion here. If that assertion spanned multiple lines here, is that the case? You can actually control C here in the middle of an add patch, and it won't add anything that you've said yes to will still be basically aborted. And so you could go through it again then here. That stuff looked okay. Split this one up again. Maybe it's just how the diff is showing the closing parentheses. Well, now there's one there too. I want to look at that one real quick. DOB. Is that what it was? Oh. Okay, these are examples where I think I have code that I've generated in this case. Yeah, this is actually code. This is inline code samples. That's why it's confusing there. So it's the parenthesis on the outside of it because this is the start of this test up here. And then this is all code actually here. This is a string, basically, a multi-line string here. And it keeps going until this part right here. So if that's the case, then I should find this over here. Yeah, there you go. You can see there's the start of that. All right, so those parentheses are not wrong. This was not a, by the way, this is not a trivial set of changes to make with this assertion here to track the fact that there's Python code inside of Python code, but there's some Python code inside of a string, a multi-line string. That makes it pretty darn complicated to get right here. And yet GPT-OSS took the front off of this, turned it into an assert, double equal, and then also got rid of that trailing parentheses. Easily something that I could have missed when I was converting this here. Looks good. Same thing here again with this. Let's take this one. I'll show you here. So we started on line 193 and went through 195. So this is 193, about 195 right here. Yep, there's the end of it. Again, it took that closing parenthesis off here, right here. Well, it also had to have the opening way up on line 193 here. 193 here. So yeah, this was one assertion it converted. And this is Python code inside of Python code. Easily could be something that throws it off, and it didn't. That's cool. Split it again here. Yeah. Check it all in. Good to go. Let's see if there's any more assert equal. Nope. All right. Nope, that's it. And yeah, the tests are now passing. Just to double check, I clear this, save this again. There you go. Unless, of course, it just deleted the assertions and not running anymore. Which I guess I could have checked to see if there's some account of assertions, but this looks about right in terms of the number of tests, and things look good in here too. I just maybe break something here real quick. Yeah, that breaks the test right there, DOB. Might be a good idea, actually, with this drastic of a set of changes to the assertions to maybe break one thing inside of each test, or at least inside of the critical test. But hey, isn't this a really good use case for something like this? GPT-OSS 20 billion parameter model is running locally on that machine right over there. I'm just throwing tons of code at it, asking it to convert things. Could you imagine doing this by hand, by the way? To go through here and, let me just undo some of this here. To go through here and be like, okay, yes, you could do a search and replace and probably get somewhere with that. You probably build up a regex or something like set, and you could get there to take the comma out, and then, but then what about the ones that span multiple lines? Then you've got to start dealing with a multi-line regex, and that's not an easy thing to do here. And so just imagine doing this by hand, manually, or even trying to build up a regular expression to do this. You get most of them, but you would definitely spend some time doing that, especially by hand, to have to come in here and basically get rid of everything up to the assert, and then get rid of the rest of equal, and then the parenthesis on the end here, and then you've got to come in here and put the equal in here. Oops. And if you're like a human like me, you mess up all the time here. So imagine doing every one of those by hand. How many did we get here on that last commit? Look at all these. You saw this with me. Maybe I spent a minute of time actually generating the new code, if even that. I spend most of my time just validating it, which is something I would do anyways, even if I had done the changes myself. So yeah, if you haven't put GPT-OSS to use, grab the 20 billion parameter model. You can run it on an average Mac. You can run it on all sorts of average GPUs. You can get great performance out of it. This is 260 tokens per second. Yes, I've got dual 5090s, but you don't need that to get easily 100 tokens. I think I got like 160 tokens per second on my Mac. Might be crazy, but I was getting really good token per second on my Mac alone. It doesn't have any sort of beefy GPU in it. So try it out. And yeah, I think it is the speed. I mean, obviously it has to be a good enough model to do this type of conversion. This is definitely a model that is very capable of doing. This is definitely a model that is extraordinarily capable of making changes to code. So that's the minimum, the bare minimum. But then you add on top of it that it's incredibly fast at 260 tokens per second in my case, and hundreds for most people. Just it's game changer in what you can do with that, because you can see how fast you can rewrite code here and use the model to do it. And even if it made a mistake, which it didn't make in this case, you could just regenerate and try a different generation of it. Could tweak your prompt, see what happens. But you saw how I got the same prompt here. I wrote that one time, and then I just ran that again. What was it, 3 or 4 times here? And it worked every single time.